How does becoming independent lead us to becoming better communicators? In this episode of Bhagavad Gita 101, Vivekji teaches us how the best communicators have the least to say.
Hari Om and greetings from Niagara Falls. One of the greatest sources of our sadness is known as kshana. Kshana means dependence, and particularly dependence on beings. One's parents, one's siblings, one's kids, one's friends, what other people think of us. This kshana creates a kata. Kata means cut. It cuts into our well-being. We're unable to think clearly. We become irresponsible. This is cutting our joy. Kshana creates kata. Now, what is the antidote? How do you reconcile this? How do you put an end to this self-harm? It is kata. Kata means narration. Kata means story. Mahabharata is history, but it's also known as a kata. And within Mahabharata is Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The kata that we're engaged in is not about history or storytelling. This is katyate, which means to invoke clarity. Our course is a catalyst to clarity. Clarity is expressed as strong knowledge. Today I was listening to Swami Tejomayananda share in such a simple way the difference between weak knowledge and strong knowledge. Weak knowledge is where you know what to do, but you're unable to do it. Strong knowledge is where you know what to do and you're able to do it. The difference between weak knowledge and strong knowledge is clarity. Strong knowledge, maybe a simpler way to express this, is conviction. This is a fine self-reflection question. What do you have conviction in? What do you have conviction towards? Our course is focused on evolving, deciding, and today we will complete communicating. The last verse we studied focused on speaking. If one speaks well, then one doesn't need to speak, correct? The more poorly I speak, the more poorly I communicate, the more I have to speak and communicate, right? But those who speak well, and they're only speaking well because they're thinking well, then they don't need to speak, they don't need to communicate. Those in front of them, those around them, they just get it. They just feel it. We're going to cover 2 shlokas now. 2 more shlokas on communicating, and I'll share some history to the first one we're going to study. In 2009, there was an overseas Acharyas conference. Swami Tejomayananda had invited all of the teachers of Chinmay Mission who were outside of Bharat. And we gathered to be inspired. Those were some of the best Advaita Vedanta discourses I've ever heard, because everyone Swamiji was speaking to had already completed a Vedanta course. So he didn't need to review or introduce. Everyone was already tuned into that subject. As part of this conference, we were given 70 shlokas from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. That's 10% of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And Swami Tejomayananda was going to randomly call teachers, and they had to come and speak for 5 minutes on whatever shloka they chose. Now, I didn't read the instructions carefully, so I prepared for all 70 shlokas. And when we got to the conference, and I wasn't the first person to speak, I was in the middle, and people were going and just choosing whatever shloka they wanted. So I thought that was a good exercise in not reading the instructions carefully, right? I got to study much more. So when I was chosen to speak, then this is the shloka that I had spoken on. And you have to visualize yourself in this position. I would have been the youngest teacher at that time. I'd finished the course at the end of 2007. This is the beginning of 2009. You have 54 other teachers who have been teaching for decades, including Swami Tejomayananda. And here I have to speak on Bhagavad Gita to all of them. We are on chapter 3, verse 21. A famous shloka, which people like to quote a lot, like I'm doing right now. Chapter 3, verse 21, please repeat. Yad acharati shreshtaha. Yad acharati shreshtaha. Tattadevetaro janaha. Tattadevetaro janaha. Sayat pramanam kurute. Sayat pramanam kurute. Lokastad anuvartate. Lokastad anuvartate. How many of you have heard this shloka before? Okay. Yat acharati shreshtaha. Shreshtaha means the one who's the best. Acharati is their behavior. Yat means whatever, whenever, however. You can keep on analyzing that in that way. It's any and all behaviors of the best person. Okay? And naturally, I'll package all of this together as we go on. But introducing this thought. Behaviors are that which is seen, yes? Me hearing, I cannot hear your behavior, I can only see your behavior. And what this shows subtly is, the more egotistical one is, the more they need to see action. The more they need to see proof. The more they need to see evidence. The less egotistical one is, one believes more. One has more faith. So this first quarter, for us to understand, are you one who has to see everything? You have to see behavior? Or can you be one who hears, listens, and has belief and faith? Tat eva itaraha janaha. Whatever that best person does, so will the general people, the common person. Itaraha janaha. And in this quarter, we are able to identify a very common sociological happening. In any sociological experience, what tends to arise is 5% of people become leaders and 95% of people become followers. Try to observe that. the next time you're at a conference. Try to observe that on the sports field. And this is not just in the positive, this is in the negative also. Who incites violence? It's that 5%, and then everyone else gets into that mob mentality, and they start to engage in that violence too. Obviously, Bhagavan Krishna here is trying to highlight the positive side. So we have Janaha and you have Shreshtaha. You have people and you have person. If you had to decide who the best person is in humanity, in society, in your community, how would you decide that? It's very easy to say, I know lots of girls who are named Shrishta. And we call sometimes an older sibling as Shrishta. But how do you determine who's the best? The way to determine who's the best is the one who is most independent. The one who is most independent is the best. And remember how I began today's class is those who have more kshana, dependence, they have more kata, more distortion. They're not the best. In our samskaras, in our traditions, I'll be more specific about this. This past Saturday, Shuka ate solids for the first time. I think since he was born, he's more of a chubby baby, especially in reference to Vyasa, who's more of a lean baby. So he's been watching Vyasa and Sheila and I eat so much, like with such eagerness. When do I get to eat whatever we're eating? So now who feeds Shuka his first spoon of solid food? My mother said it has to be my sister, because that's tradition. And I asked my mother, how come? It's tradition. But in my analysis, in my studies, it is the one who is independent. That person should be feeding the one who is dependent, because that dependent person has to become independent, yes? Only one who is independent can help those be independent also. But if I'm dependent, how can I help another person be independent? How can I help another person be the best? So whenever you want to bring auspiciousness to a milestone in your life, to a new home, whatever it may be, the person who should commence all of that is one who is independent. They are Shreshta. This first line is emphasized again in the second line. Sa, that's the best person. Yat, whatever they do. Pramanam kurute. That becomes the authority. That becomes the benchmark for humanity, for society, for people. The best person is one who demonstrates the possibility of being independently joyous. They demonstrate that. They help people believe that they can be more than meets the eye. And small examples of that. If you take athletics, I think his name is Roger Bannister, the first person who ran the 4-minute mile. And as soon as he did it, then many people did it within that same month. And since then, I'm sure thousands and millions have. He set the benchmark for how fast this human body can move, yes? And people train to be like that. Aramco, I think, is going to be valued as a first $1 trillion company. And they're going to set the benchmark that this is going to be the wealthiest company for now. And then other companies will feel that they can do it too. If you rewound 50 years ago, do you think any company would have thought they could be worth $100 billion? But that's the milestone then. In the context of Bhagavad Gita, the best are those who demonstrate that despite the context, that they can be independently joyous. So many of us feel that if my spouse is not in line with me, if I don't make $100,000, if I don't get into this program, and on and on and on, then I can't be happy. And those who are not the best, they will show, yeah, your context is no good, so you're no good. But those who are shrestha, they will never let society make excuses where context has power over content. Understood? And this is a really lovely section of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I'll share more as the months go on. But if you want, in the prior shloka, Bhagavan Krishna actually gives Prince Arjuna a specific name of one who has the most responsibilities, yet is most joyous. And who is that? Raja Janaka. Do you remember how he described who a Raja is? A Raja is the one with the most responsibilities, the one who thinks of every praja, everyone around them. Imagine how much sadness such a person would come across. How many worries they would be exposed to. But they are unaffected by that. They're above that. Raja Janaka, there's many, many, many lovely narrations of him. And one, I believe, attributed to him is he was in satsang, like we are. And one of his palaces was burning down. And someone came to him and said, your palace is burning down. And he said, so what? I'm in satsang. Now for all of us, okay, imagine your car alarm is going off right now in your driveway. As I'm speaking and I'm telling you about Srimad Bhagavad Gita and independent joy, where are you right now? It's your driveway. It's probably windy outside. What's satsang? Car alarm. Yes? The last line. Lokaha tad anuvartate. When people see it's possible that even in a rough context, that one's content is happy, then people start to live like that. And that is loka, and remember this term, sangraha. Loka sangraha. Again, lots of lovely shlokas. In a earlier shloka, that is shloka 20, Raja Janaka is described as someone who needs nothing from the world, yet gives everything to the world. He's engaged in loka sangraha. He's simply acting for the welfare of the world. He's lifting the world up. Now ask yourself, are you directly engaged in loka sangraha? And if you are, that would be the best legacy that you can offer to humanity, the best use of your life. And if you are doing that, then the people around you will be living that way too. Your spouse, your kids, your co-workers. Swami Tejamayana had once shared, if everyone around you is smiling, there's a good possibility that you're the cause for their smiling. And if everyone around you is miserable, there's a good possibility that you're the cause of their misery. Okay? Think lots about what is sangraha, what is welfare? In Canada, welfare is taken very literally where people are given funds. That is welfare. And it's needed. But I feel such a short-term strategy. Instead of operating on a reactive way, why not make healthy food cheaper? Yes, that would be real sangraha, not just operating in a reactive way. Let's chant this shloka together. Yadyadacharati shreshtaha taddadevetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Communicating. The earlier shloka was about speaking. You can communicate to those who have less ego. They will hear you, they will listen to you, they will believe you, they will have faith in you. But most of us, our egos are too big. That's why you can't use words, you have to use actions. One more shloka. And you won't expect the shloka, and that's what's so lovely about this course. Spontaneous, lots of reflection. We're going back to chapter 2, verse 54. Chapter 2, verse 54. Who's the speaker? Arjuna Uvacha. It is Prince Arjuna. Do you know the last shloka that Arjuna was speaking in? Verse 8. 54 minus 8 is 45 shlokas. There are 45 verses where Prince Arjuna is sitting in his chariot, bow on the ground, arrows on the ground, chin in his hand, dejected. And he's told Bhagavan Krishna, not only will I not fight, that's given, I will not speak. We're like that sometimes, right? I'm just not going to talk to you anymore until you buy me something. We have to do the same with Vyasa, you know? When he's really upset, then you have to divert his upsetness by, Vyasa, let's play catch, or let's go outside, or here's an icicle. And all of a sudden that dejection is gone, and that's awesome. The cure to dejection is icicles. The fact that Prince Arjuna is speaking shows what an awesome teacher and leader Bhagavan Krishna is. So what does Arjuna say? Stita prajnasya ka bhasha, stita prajnasya ka bhasha, samadhistasya keshava, samadhistasya keshava, stita dikim prabhasheta, stita dikim prabhasheta, kimasita vrajeta kim, kimasita vrajeta kim. Prince Arjuna asks Bhagavan Krishna, stita prajnasya. Prajna means knowledge. And when knowledge is stita, it's called wisdom. Stita means standing. Stita means firm. Stita means changeless. Ka bhasha. Describe to me that person who, despite the context perpetually changing, how is it that their content does not change? This scenario is coming to my mind, and I think I'd presented this to all of you earlier. How much money will it take for me to buy your truth? If you're a truthful person and I ask you to lie or to commit a petty crime, how much money do I have to give to you for you to change your truth or your integrity? It's probably not $10,000, but if it's $100,000, I think you'll all think about it. Yes? Petty crime. You'll get it stricken from your record. That's $100,000. That's a whole year you don't have to work. Maybe 2 years, correct? $1 million. Will you commit a heavier crime then? You can't cross the border. Who cares? It's $1 million. See, our prajna, we also have knowledge, but it's not stita. It's chuta. It keeps falling. It stands up, it falls. It stands up, it falls. Samadhis tasya Keshava. He's calling Bhagavan Krishna here Keshava. Tell me, Samadhi, what do they think like? Samadhi means well and fully placed. Their mind is well and fully placed in the spirit. So how do they think? In the third quarter, how do they prabhasheta? How do they speak? And in the last quarter, how do they sit? Asita and vrajeta. How do they walk? So remember these questions. Prince Arjuna is asking Bhagavan Krishna, how does an independently joyous person think? How do they speak? How do they sit? How do they walk? And this becomes the introduction for the remainder of this chapter where Bhagavan Krishna describes the enlightened person, the one who is liberated. Now you're all thinking, how does this relate to communication? The ideal way to communicate is to understand the person you want to communicate with, yes? We studied that with the gunas already. But remember, the gunas are still limits. What is transcending that which is transcendental is that oneness. When I can understand, at least intellectually, one who is enlightened, then I start to follow the same thinking and the same speaking and the same acting. That becomes my game plan. That becomes my map. They are ones whose communication is like you're communicating to yourself. You don't have to work hard to communicate to yourself. It's you. Now, someone who's enlightened, they feel every being is them. So wouldn't they become the best communicators? With their actions, they would know how to act with other people in every context. They would know how to speak to everyone in every context. And most deeply, they would simply know what others are thinking about and be able to help them with their own thoughts. Today I was reading about a senior member of Chinmay Mission who knew Swami Chinmayananda well, and he had just arrived in the city, and she had this question, and she had reflected on this question a lot, and she wanted to ask Swami Chinmayananda, but activities began, so it was not possible, and he was walking from the discourse hall to the car, and she was with him, and he stopped and looked at her and said, "Ask me your question." And she didn't have that question anymore. And he just smiled at her. He knew she had a question. He already answered her question without even opening his. Her having to open her mouth, or him having to open his mouth. Yes? You were hoping for another verse or shloka about when you speak, you should intonate. With communication, write clearly. 7 tips for this and this and this. But really, this is the best verse on. Our communication is not to become richer and more powerful. It is to relieve others of their stress and anxiety, their depression. And that's only possible if you're so in tune with your oneness that you can feel that oneness with others. Let's read this shloka together. Stita prajnasya ka pasha Samadhistasya Keshava Stitadi Kim Prabhasheta Kimasita Vrajeta Kim.
Chinmaya Niagara's Elevate Her Story campaign is in its third year, supporting various women's needs and initiatives. This year, Elevate Her Story is offering gratitude to those who have cared for the lands we thrive on today. The National Indigenous Women's Resource Center is a nonprofit dedicated to restoring the sovereignty of Native nations and safeguarding Native women and their children. Visit this year's campaign at chinmayaniagara.com for details on offering your gratitude.